Let me make sure I'm recording. Yeah. Hey, everyone, welcome to the Real Estate Insider podcast with John McClellan. That's me, and I got Kevin Bound over here too. Kevin, thanks
Hello,
for coming
everyone.
today.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. It's so easy now in the Zoom format, and we still have to figure out how to coordinate on each other's schedules, but we're making time for it on this beautiful day. So,
Yeah, it is a beautiful day in Austin, Texas, which is where we are right now. I think it's about 75 degrees and sunny. I'll take that for a November day.
yeah, this is one of the things I wanted to cover is seasonality in real estate because it's come up in and around my client contacts and our agent conversations. Is this question of, okay, we're going into the winter, the quote winter. Should I take my home off the market or should I keep it listed? And I was going to ruminate about this with you on this
How
podcast.
long, if you take a house off the market, how long before it doesn't, it shows as a new listing as opposed to relisted?
90 days will reset the days on market, at least one component of the days on market. We really have two, what we call ADOM as an agent days on market, and that gets reset after 90 days. Um, or if you switch agents. And then there's a CDOM, which is a cumulative days on market, and that does a 365-day look back,
Mm.
and then it adds those together. So you can't really escape it to truly 000 without being off the market for a year. But getting that agent days on market is what most of the websites are auto-filling from. And so it does give you some advantage there.
So,
But
so
what I was
what
going to tell
what is
you
the
is that
benefit of taking a house off the market in this market or leaving it back on for that matter?
I mean, I was going to argue the leaving it on, and I was going to talk about some of the activity markers that we've been running into because Austin has been evolving over the years. This is my what year? We're in 2024, so this is my 26th year selling residential real estate in Austin. And it used to be much more seasonal, our city, where there was very much a peak summer selling season, and then we'd have a slowdown into the winter. That really has changed a lot since the evolution of technology and the way that the workforce is impacting Austin. But really, over the last 2 years, this post-COVID effect, we've been seeing a lot of people, John, who are traveling during the summer. It gets so hot here, and
Hmm.
there's so many transplants that are not used to the heat that we're noticing that that's affecting the number of real estate transactions during the summer. That traditional peak season, it has a lot of the market participants are not here. They're off traveling to beat the heat. And as temperatures fall, there's this kind of coming back from summer break. And then as temperatures fall here, that we actually see a pretty good boost of activity.
What,
So
what what about when it comes to like the average or median price? And I'm going to just share a chart with you real quick so you can take a look at this. Here it is. So on this chart that I'm sharing right now, I assume you can see it. Um, it looks like we kind of peak when it comes to this is looking back to 2019 on median home
yeah,
price. And it looks like, homes, they kind of peak in the summer and then they take a dive, flatten back out, then come back up again. So, um, how do you how do you translate that into?
yeah. So I'm glad you brought this up because this is a very common myth in that this is about the granularity of information that gets shared on the evening news, and people will come away with the thought process that homes will sell for more during the summer than they will in the winter. But what I want to add one more layer, this is a very important layer, is that those aren't the same homes. Those homes in the summer that are selling are not the same homes that are being sampled in the winter. And there's geographical differences, but more importantly, there's square footage differentiators. So, as you're aware, and
So
for
there's
our
different
listeners,
square footage in the summer than there's in the winter.
correct. It's
Okay, that's
bigger.
interesting.
It's bigger, yeah. So the higher bedroom count homes are more affected by moves where people prefer to move out of the school year. So if you have 5 kids and you're in a 7 bedroom house, you probably want to move during the summer so you don't disrupt their school cycle as much. Um, the 1 bedroom condos in downtown, they don't have that same seasonality. People move in and out all the time. Those perhaps we could argue are more highly influenced by the getaway from the heat factor. And you may even see more transactions of those in the winter market when it's cool. So what happens if you have more 7-bedroom houses selling in the summer and more 1-bedroom condos selling in the winter is that it looks like prices are higher. Well, prices are higher in the summer, but it's by factor of the physical differences of the properties that we're looking at. So a better chart would be price per square foot.
Hmm.
That would help you a little bit, but still, like, arguably these properties, at least depending on where you set the granularity measurement to it, these are different properties from each other.
So it sounds like it's a different conversation with every potential seller that you're going to have, and it's based upon their property type, where it's at.
It is. So like bad advice to me to John to say, hey John, your house, you have 4-bedroom house and a study and all this awesome stuff. Let's sell it in the summer because houses sell for more in the summer than they do in the winter. This would be a misinterpretation of me saying that your house value, your specific house value is different in the summer and winter. So that'd be a misinterpretation of that data. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does. Absolutely. I've just never
Yeah.
heard it put that way, but yeah, it does make sense. And what are you seeing with the market right now? We're in November of 2024 at the moment.
I'll tell you something very interesting. 2 weeks ago, I work with a lot of investors, some that do heavy remodels, and then also some builders that do from scratch. And one of my builder clients that buys houses, tears them down, and builds new construction as speculative homes. They said a couple weeks ago, "Hey, we're ready to kind of dip our toe back in and get some projects started." I said, "Great." I found them four. I poured through the MLS and found the four that I thought are best, knowing kind of what their numbers look like, and said these four are in great areas. I'd be, excited about reselling your finished product in these neighborhoods. Here's what the exit value would be. Here's what the list prices are. It meets our math equation of making sense. And they said, great, we'll go drive by them. They drove by the four and they said, we like two of them the best. Let's reach out and take action on these two. Both of them were in multiple offers. These are teardowns. Both were in multiple offers and are now under contract as the time of this podcast for over 100,000 more than the list prices. And these were list prices. One was listed for around 500,000 and the other was listed for 700,000. So for more, they're under contract for more, close to 15% more than what their asking price is. That's not reflected yet in the closed price. So you're going to see that information and that data making it into the broader market, I guess, whenever this podcast comes out, but also when those things start closing, which will be mid-December, we're going to start seeing some data points of these
In January.
really. No, well, we're recording this in November. So these closings will take place in December. And you'll see that data, the one that's listed for 700 closing out for around 825.
Gotcha.
And
But the
people are going to
public won't see it till
realize,
January, right?
correct.
I mean,
But the point is that the spec builders, so all these multiple offers, these are the same category of buyer. They're active today. They're competing with each other and they're driving prices up today, though that's not reflected in the general awareness yet.
hmm,
So I think that that's important. I think if you're on the fence, if you're in that category and sort of these are, contact us offline to talk specific area strategy, but these are central, what we would call in central Austin, inside of 183 and 360, north of Ben White, 71. Um, that's the tear down play and buying those lots. Those values have been higher than they are what we're talking about. They've fallen. These are some of the distressed
so it's made,
submarkets.
you're saying that falling prices have made more now there people are starting to do it again because they're getting a better value on the land or the house that they're going to fix up.
Correct. So for the last about 2 years, since interest rates have been higher, those spec builders had stopped buying these central lots because they were sitting on inventory that they finished that they're trying to sell, and many of them are experiencing a lot of stress, a lot of financial stress. Some are taking some losses on these $3 million houses that they built in 2020, 2021. They stopped buying lots. They turned off the deal flow. What I'm saying is that deal flow has turned back on. So those lots that were let's say a million. In one of these neighborhoods, these lots were at a million one for teardowns. That was just listed for 700
Mm,
based on comps, which were not like there's no volume, right? You can cold call the builders 6 months ago, said, "Hey, got a great lot. It's right in a neighborhood that you love to build in." And they say, "Nope, not buying anything right now." It's just a doesn't matter what the price is. They're just a hard no. They are yeses now, and so those things that are being listed at 700 in that neighborhood are getting activity up and above 800,000. So that's
so
still
what are
below
the
the million.
yeah, what do these builders do? Like over in the Barton Hills neighborhood, which I was driving around in just yesterday,
Yeah,
and that neighborhood, there's a lot of big houses, brand
yeah,
new, and they're
yep,
not sold, and they're all
correct.
sitting there. So
Yep.
what are those developers, builders doing with those properties?
Anything they can. Some have leased them as a way to sort of just wait
Mitigate
till a
risk.
different market. Yeah, wait till a different market. Just press the time travel button and say, let's try again next year or 2 years out. Not a bad strategy because again, that 3 to 4 million, there was 4 to 5 million too as well in Barton Hills. Uh, that buyer had just stopped. We've talked a little bit about this in some of our previous shows before, John, but um, a house has different components. There's the basic shelter component, and then beyond that, you get into some luxury value. Um, so, for example, like um, a $4.5 million house in Barton Hills is in excess of what the basic shelter costs. If you wanted to be in Barton Hills, you can do that um, in a very habitable house, let's say for $1 to 1.5 million, and satisfy that I need shelter in Barton Hills neighborhood that's big enough for the utility effect of my family. At 4 million, you're getting a lot of shiny surfaces, a lot of big high ceilings, big spans of glass, dramatic swimming pool, right? All these luxury features, which when people are paying for luxury, then those values, there were sales in that range. But when the economy gets shaky, people will pull back. You and I have looked at the boat effect of whether people are buying boats or people are selling boats. That's
Yeah.
something that can be nice to have. It's certainly a luxury, but it's not a basic necessity. So that's a place to cut back if you're nervous about your job or you're nervous about the economy. Same thing for $4 million houses in Barton Hills. You can pull back a little bit and still live in Barton Hills in a very nice house without being at that level.
Interesting. Yeah, it seems like every neighborhood is a little bit different, right? What are some of the
For
neighborhoods
sure.
you've seen around Austin that are doing a little bit better than others? Holding their value, maybe increasing in value.
Yeah, we've talked about the donut. We liken that you have Austin and maybe city limits of Austin, and then we have big growth that's taking place in our suburbs and all of these areas that are commutable into the employment centers of Austin, but offer more affordability. Those are still doing very well. So, nice house in the 500 to 700,000 range that gives you enough space and is reasonably commutable. Those areas are doing very well. In our MSA, our metro statistical area, there's a big differentiator of city limits of Austin is a much slower transaction wise than everything else. Much like about 3 out of 4 sales transactions are taking place outside of the city limits of Austin right now. So
Yeah,
that donut is, yeah, that's where
that
the
rim of
action is. And
expansion.
yeah, it's affordability. It's an affordability question.
Yeah, I know that. I don't know if you've noticed, but traffic has seemed to have gotten worse. Like I think since the time change we had. I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe because it's dark when everybody's driving home, they're doing a little bit worse driving than they normally would be. You
it
know,
is. It is. Yeah, you and I love to armchair quarterback speculate. We're amateur traffic engineers,
yeah,
but what before daylight savings, the morning commute would be measurably worse than the afternoon commute, and it's because everybody's trying to arrive at the same time, but then they're leaving at different times. Some people
right.
will leave at 4, some 5, some 6, maybe some would work late till 7 because there's still daylight. And to your point, with daylight savings, everyone's being squeezed into that narrow band and leaving at the same time. The morning commute might actually have improved a little bit.
Yeah, I actually
So
think it has. We see a lot of construction around town on roads right now. There's tons of it, especially up in Northwest Austin, up and down 360. I've mentioned those because I live, go back and forth between there. It's pretty amazing what they're doing on 360. How do you think that'll affect real estate in that area once that project's done? I mean, it's similar to
So
the Y in Oak Hill, once the project's done.
yeah, absolutely. We're with newcomers and people that have been in Austin for a while. As we're teaching them about traffic and how that impacts real estate values along 360, Loop 360 on the west side of town. There's a price premium for being inside of the loop versus outside of the loop, meaning people will pay more. And it's a convenience factor that has to do with commute times because if you're inside of Loop 360, it greatly ups your chances of being able to come in and out of town without dealing with traffic on 360. If you're outside in some of those neighborhoods, then you generally are going to have to interact with 360 in some form or fashion. There's some counter examples to this along some of the spurs or the spines, but it can be a big difference, 10% maybe on pricing, where the homes you would think would be relatively similar or comparable. That should come down. That premium should come down once these 360 improvements are completed, because basically what they're trying to do is eliminate some of the street lights by either using underpasses and or eliminating streetlights and doing what do they call it? There's a fancy traffic term for it where you can only turn right, and then you go to the next U-turn, and then you make a
Turnabout.
U-turn, something like that.
Yeah.
But that eliminates a street light, and so the elimination of the street lights is really what's aimed to improve the flow
Yeah.
along 360.
I
Yeah,
think the same thing down at the Wyatt Oak Hill too. Once that project's done, it'll bring all those houses that right now commute wise are very, very rough, and it probably reduces the value of a lot of those properties on the other side of the Y. And once that's completed, I think you'll see some values probably rebound a little bit, especially right there probably to Circles Drive and maybe a little bit past there too, maybe
yeah.
even partially into Dripping Springs.
Hey, John, I want to segue a little bit if we can, because we're in this sort of broad macro 2-year, 5-year conversation about the market. What we've seen, you and I work with a lot of investors, and what we've seen, I would say, is that sale prices, that's a huge broad brush, have fallen, I don't know, 17, 20% from peak. Rent rates are softer, but they haven't come down 20%. They may be down 5% year over year. And what you and I noticed was that means your price to rents ratio has actually improved in many
Yeah.
cases, where those rents have stayed pretty sticky, but prices have come down. And you're on top of watching mortgage products with an investor focus, where we can take some of these trends and say, hey, this new product, this creates a niche that we can really act in a way that is competitive for us, for me as real estate brokers, being able to utilize your products to help our investor clients, and you too for helping your investor clients and your refinancing on the loan side of things. But I'm leading up to talking, if you're okay, to talk about the uh,
DSCR. Yeah. The
DSCR
debt
loans.
service
Yeah, the debt
ratio.
service coverage ratio loans,
Yeah.
because they are the interest rates on them are pretty similar to what they were 5 years ago, which back then you're like, oh, this is a big premium over, my 3% interest rate. But now they're pretty close to
Yeah,
what
they are. Just
a
what
good
a
rate is.
DSCR loan is, it's basically what it does is that it doesn't look at the income. It's a non-QM mortgage, not non-qualified mortgage, only for investors, period. You can't buy it as a primary home or second home, but you can do it as an investment property. And what it does is it looks at the ratio between the rents on the property as determined by the appraiser who does the appraisal, and then also looks at that ratio as against what the mortgage payment is, right? So if a simple example is if the mortgage payment's $1,000 and the rents are $1,000, well, then you don't need any income documentation. You put as little as 20% down and buy this home with no income documentation whatsoever. So they're just looking at the service coverage ratio of the property itself. In fact, you could even go down to if the rents are $750 opposed to 1,000, so down to 0.75 ratio. Now, the better the ratio is, the lower the rate goes, and obviously the worse it is. There's extra risk for the investor out there. But yeah, we're seeing some some really good movement from some investors out there. I have a lot of self-employed, builders, investors in single family homes or condos or whatever it may be that are really liking this because a lot of them have been doing it for a while. And as we know, over the last 2.5 years here in Austin, it's been tough on some of these investors and some of these builders and developers out there, right? And so their income that's reported on their tax return may not be sufficient to allow for a traditional purchase on an investment property. Well, this one kind of pretty much throws this out because there is no verification of income. You don't put it on the application, anything. It's just looking at the property, the credit score, and the reserves that the potential borrower has, right? And so it makes for a lot simpler process. You just got to make sure that, and as an investor, being a savvy investor, you got to make sure that your rents are covered, right? Or your mortgage payment is covered on the rent. So, if you had something that was a $5,000 a month mortgage payment and the rents were 2,500, probably can't get that done. But it's probably not a very smart move either, right? To be 100% upside down on your payment. But it's really working well. The rates can range anywhere from, depending on the debt service ratio and depending on the down payment and depending on how many points you want to pay, it can fluctuate anywhere from 8.5 down to 6.5. We actually locked one in at our office today at 6.5. Borrower, really good borrower, putting 30% down. And that's better than a conforming loan right now for primary residence, to be honest with you. And that was on a 30-year fix too. So they were very happy with it.
Incredible.
This particular property was a condominium development that actually was non-warrantable, which we're able to do under this program. And we used short term, so you can either use long-term rental rates to qualify, or if allowable, like in a condo complex, if short-term rental is allowable in that area and for that condominium project, you can actually have the appraiser do the rental comps based on short-term rental, which typically are a lot more than the long-term rental rates that we see around town, especially in certain areas, right? Makes it very advantageous.
Yeah. 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 I mean, this is pretty exciting because it's a structure of loan that used to be it used to be punitive and that you would really pay a premium on the interest rate in order to get some of the advantages that it brings. And now, as you said, like the interest rates actually can be below what your typical conforming mortgage product is looking like. So
Yeah,
this
I
is a pretty
mean, if you
exciting
think of it
thing.
this way, so Fannie Mae has these what are called loan level pricing adjustments that they'll take a base rate of what the rate is today, and then they have basically risk tiers, right? Say if it's an investment property, well, they're going to charge you an extra 3%, right, in cost based upon the loan amount, or maybe even 4% if it's just 20% down. Then there's like, what's your credit score? What's your LTV? And sometimes on a 20% down investment property, single family, just Fannie Mae cookie cutter loan, you're looking at add-ons of over 5.25% from Fannie Mae. So that would take, if let's say the base rate is at 7% today, well, 7%, you would have to pay 5 points to keep it at 7%. And well, you can't do that. You're not going to do that. So you'll have to build it into the rate, which means it's probably going to be in the high sevens or low eights, right? And you're going to have to go through all this income documentation. And a lot of self-employed borrowers, especially developers and investors out there, they have very complicated tax returns. And a lot of times it's easier to use the DSCR program than any other programs out there. And the rate's probably going to be, depending on your credit score and LTV, it may be better than a real Fannie Mae loan.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm excited that you've got that to share. So we've got a bunch of people teed up that are looking at properties that now make sense and situations that make sense for them that didn't just last month.
Another thing with this DSCR loan, you can actually put it in an LLC at closing too, as part of the deal, other than like a Fannie Mae where you have to wait till after closing. As I said, you do non-warrantable condos. So yeah, and up to $4.5 million too. Now, you do a $4.5 million loan
Need a
purchase,
lot of rent.
and the rents would have to be pretty high to cover that, right?
Does it have to be 1 to 4 family or can you go more units than four?
I'll have to look that up. We'll do that
Okay.
online. It is 1 to 4 family though, for sure.
Yeah.
You can
Okay.
actually, in fact, if you're an investor out there and you want to take cash out of an investment property, this actually allows for a cash out refinance on an investment property using the DSCR program. So
Nice.
pretty cool. Some people there's when you look at maybe getting money out on an investment property and you're looking at you're maybe in there at 4%, well, and then you're going to take cash out on it, and maybe it's going to be 8.25%. You might want to default. Maybe let's just take it in the sevens. It might be a little bit better for cash flow reasons
Yeah,
for you.
just blend it out.
Hey,
Makes
one of the
sense.
things I love to talk about, and I know you really love to talk about because I watch your Instagram. What's your Instagram for
Yeah.
everybody out there?
Yeah, it's Kevin Bound ATX.
Kevin, it's BOWN, like town.
BOWN. Yeah, not Brown. Kevin Bound like town.
Bound like town. So one of the things I know you love, and you know I love too, is the historic aspect and the fun stories that come out of Austin, right?
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
want to share. I know you and I have talked about this one before. I was doing some stuff on Chat GPT the other day, which I love, by the way, giving you ideas for Instagram posts. And you actually gave me this. I actually created my own GPT, just like you did.
yeah.
But anyway, so during all these, every time we do this podcast, I want you to look for this part of it. We're going to talk about different cool, weird, crazy things around Austin, right? So the one I want to share about today happened a long, long time ago. But let me pull it. I'm going to
Yes.
pull up the Wikipedia page here so you can
Okay.
take a look at it if I can find it. Uh, talk amongst yourselves, Kevin.
Talk amongst yourselves.
There we go.
Yeah, Austin has a lot of good history by being the capital of Texas. There's a lot of Texas history that happened in and around Austin. So we got some good stories, but I'm friends with those over at the Austin History Center, and I'll go pop my head in there and dig through the old files. And I love finding stuff that hasn't been brought to the internet yet and being the first one.
Yeah, and
Um,
for most people out there that are living in Austin, maybe you're from here, maybe you just got here. I believe that Jack the Ripper started here before he went to London.
it's quite possible. It's quite possible.
So the
Yes,
Servant Girl Annihilator is the name of the serial killer, and O. Henry, which was a writer back in the early late 1800s
yeah,
here, used to name it after O. Henry, and middle school is named after him. Did you know he was in
yeah,
prison for a while? Anyway, I
yep.
digress.
William Sidney Porter. Yes.
Yeah, so he kind of made he did the name the Servant Girl Annihilator. This guy butchered with an axe like 5 or 6 people, most of them women, one man, and then disappeared from the landscape of Austin, Texas. And then
Yeah, that rumor about Jack the Ripper is that when the killings stopped here, uh, they started in London a year later. So many
yeah,
investigative journalists have been looking at old ship registers to say who sailed from Texas to England back in that time period. Could be,
I
could
don't
be.
know.
There's a rumor. It's actually not true. The dates don't quite line up, but you know how associated Austin is with our moon towers. These are these towers that have lights in them. They're scattered throughout downtown. One of them is in Zilker
Zilker
Park
Tree.
now. Yeah, the Zilker Tree. Um, one of the popular rumors is that those were brought in because of the Servant Girl Annihilator, because people were scared to go out at night because of the serial killer that was active. The dates actually are flip-flop, so that they don't make sense. But a lot of our lore gets tied together like that. Yeah, it was a scary time where this city was a pretty wild city.
Yeah,
And
this is
yeah, to have a killer on
1885-ish, right?
1885-ish. And so this is different than, what we're dealing with now, which is the Lady Bird Lake, rainy street
Yeah, I can't figure
rumors.
out if that's like a lark or if it's real or what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, do
There's
you have
you,
insider information?
well, it seems to be it's like Rainy Street is close to the water. I think that there had been a series of druggings where mostly men were waking up in the alleyway without their wallets, and surveillance footage would show them being escorted by groups to ATM machines and forcing them to take money out of an ATM machine. Um, and they don't remember anything. And so they trace it back, and some have gotten toxicology tests fast enough to find that they've had some drug in their system. But um, if there's a quote gang or some person, but it seems to be at least multiple people working together that are drugging people to get them to the ATM machine, and it puts those people into a stupor where they don't know where they are or what's going on. That would seem to be a hazardous condition to be in if you're near a body of water.
Yeah,
because if you
absolutely.
wandered into the lake, you might not know.
Yeah.
So I don't know
Nothing
if
here
there's
is
any
traveling
such,
groups.
could be, yeah. But our days, John, of bouncing around old Sixth Street and causing mayhem are long gone, sir.
Well, yeah, I have one in me every once in a while, as I know you do too.
A
They're usually a little bit further north, though, or west.
little further north.
Well, hey, listen.
Don't say where. I don't want to see surveillance footage of myself at an ATM machine.
Yeah, no, I won't. I got your back. Before we go, I do want to talk about interest rates real quick and just
Good.
shine some light on that. I'm going to share my screen over here one more time. Um, it's funny. Everybody's like, "Oh, interest rates are dropping." No, the Fed has cut interest rates for sure, right? But they're not really dropping. In fact, they've gone up. And if you look back 3 months, and I'm going to go to a point on this chart that I've got right here. So this peak right here was the first Fed cut on September 16th, and 2 days later, the Fed cut 50 basis points. Now, this chart is a little deceiving because it's a mortgage-backed security. So you think, oh, look, rates went down. No, actually, that's the price, and they're inverse of each other. So when that chart is going down, that means rates are going up. So since that fateful day on there it is right there, Wednesday, September 18th, the lowest rates we have seen in over a year were happening. We were around 6%, sometimes 5.875%. And since then, as you can see on this chart, it has been a long road to the bottom. It's about 300 basis points worse to interest rates. Today didn't really help very much. We had some very, very strong retail sales report. It's been an interesting week. The Fed Chairman Powell spoke yesterday, and he wasn't very bright. He wasn't very happy, it seemed. And when he's not happy, the market's not happy, right? And then a couple of days ago on Wednesday, we had the CPI, which came out pretty flat, but the market reacted a little bit, but not much. So there's a lot going on. And then people are asking me now, hey, what are interest rates going to do? Here's what I do know. I know that if there are some tariffs coming, and I've read a couple articles about this, it could cause inflationary on goods like lumber, building
Right.
materials, right?
Yeah.
And it trans and spread that out to a myriad of other things too that we import in. So tariffs done the right way could create a lot of inflation out there. Now, on the flip side of that, if you're thinking about tariffs, and the new administration is talking about getting rid of a big portion of the government jobs out there, right? You get rid of a bunch of government jobs, that's going to put pressure on the unemployment report, which was actually favorable for rates, right? So you got one hand tariffs bringing them up, one hand maybe people losing their jobs, bringing it down. So the answer to what are rates going to do? I don't know. We just have to sit back and relax. My point to all of our clients, what we're talking about right now, you get a property under contract, you lock that loan right then and there. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
If for some reason it drops through the floor and goes down a full point, then we'll renegotiate and get you a little bit better rate, right? But you definitely want to have a hedge to higher interest rates. And remember, they go down much lower than they go up. As the analogy that you're probably sick of me hearing for 25 years that we've known each other, it's like a beach ball being held underwater. And as soon as you release any pressure on it, it shoots up, but it's hard to get down. It goes slow down, fast up. So
Yeah.
lock your loans, people.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, Kevin, it's been great
Well,
today. I hope you have a great
yeah.
weekend.
You too. We're enjoying this weather and we'll see this continued activity. And I'm going to get out there and sell some more properties with this DSCR loans. It really opens up a huge amount of opportunities for a lot of investors. Um, and so go use them while you can. That's great.
Don't tell anybody. Just you.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. All right, guys. See you next time.
Okay. See you, John.